First one is in this chapter, we are going to cover something like what is the process concept. What is the concept of the process? That is what we are going to cover. That is the first thing. Then how the process are going to schedule. What are the various things that we are going to see in the process scheduling? How to, if two or more processes are working simultaneously, how they are going to schedule each other. That is what we are going to see in the next topic. Then what are the various operations that we can do in the process? What are the various things that we can do? Then inter-process communication. Inter-process is nothing but if one work is going on, one task is going on, how it will communicate with other tasks. So, and we are going to see the examples. So this is what we are going to cover in this chapter. So when we come to the process, what is the process exactly? I've shown you an example in the previous class. Remember, work is going on one after the other.
Yeah.
First work. If you have seen, where there were three colors: red, green, and yellow. Red work was going on, followed by green, followed by yellow. They were going on one after the other. So they are the works which are going to be executed in a computer. So in technical term, those works are called as jobs or tasks. The user program, the program that we are going to write, or the things that we are going to do. So according to operating system, they are going to be given a different technical name. If it is a batch operating system, then they're going to call it as jobs. If it is time sharing is nothing but whatever the things we have seen in the types of operating system, then it is called as task. Don't get worried about these two terms. Okay, so depending on the book to book, depending on terminology, they're going to classify. But in our simple terms, the instructions that we are giving in a program, we are writing the programs, right? So the instructions that we give in a program in order to execute is what we call as a process. Every instruction is a process. Remember this. Suppose if I have given a code, C out, welcome to operating system. And that is the instruction to be executed in the C program or C++. That is a task which has to be executed. That is a process which has to be executed. Okay. Process is nothing too high difficult term or nothing extraordinary. Remember this. Process means every instruction that we give in a program is what we call as a process or task or work or job. Anything can be called as. So this process, that is, these instructions are going to work in a sequential order. That is one after the other. Will first instruction work and it will directly skip to the fifth one? No, right? It will from first it will go to the second. From second it will go to third. So those instructions will be executed in a sequential order. Okay. Then for this instructions, whatever the instructions we have, they are going to be into different things. Okay. They are going to be divided into something like text sections. They're going to divide into something like text sections, program counters, stack, data sections, heaps. I'll explain you what are all these things. I'll explain you with a technical diagram. I'll try to explain what are all these things, how the things are going to be done in this. Or let me explain the diagram first. All are able to see the diagram, right? How the process is going to work in a S. All are able to follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes,
here,
yes.
see that diagram
Yes,
here.
yes.
So these are the various parts that we are going to have in a process. That is every instruction that we are going to execute, it is going to divide into so many parts: text, data, heap, and stack. Okay. So if we come to this explanation of these things exactly, how it is going to be is, suppose if we come to the text section at the bottom part. At the bottom we have something like text section. There what is going to happen is it is a just a program which is coming into the memory. That is, I'm writing a program. I'm writing a program in C or C++ language, and I'm compiling it. I'm running a program. So once I'm compiling and running a program, that program will reach to something called as text section. That is instruction number 1, line number 1 will come into the text section. So what is going to do in the text section? What is going to happen exactly in the text section? It is going to read the instruction. It is going to read whatever instruction we are given. It is going to read that instruction, and it is going to decide what it has to do with that instruction. It is going to launch the instruction, in fact. So what it will do is, from this text section, if any data has to be stored, suppose if I have declared a variable int x is equal to 10, that is, the data has to be stored in the program. The data is required. So what it will do is, it will send the data to the data section, and the information is going to be stored in the data section. Whatever data it has to store, whatever information I have to store, it will be storing. It can be a global variable. It can be a local variable. You might remember these terms: local variable, global variable.
Yes.
Everybody, what is a local
Yes.
variable?
Uh, Local variable, which is present in main function.
Which is declared inside a function.
Inside a function, yeah.
Which is declared inside a function is called as local variable.
Variable.
Global means which is declared outside the
Outside
function.
the function.
Outside the
Exactly.
function
Yes.
is a global variable. So
Yeah.
any kind of variable, whatever it may be, it can be a local variable, it can be a global variable. The memory is going to be allocated over there. Okay. From there, it will go to something like heap section. Heap is nothing but it is a dynamic memory allocation. You might have remembered some functions like malloc, calloc, realloc in C language. Remember these functions in
Malloc,
yeah,
realloc.
malloc, realloc,
Yes.
then new, delete in C++.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So they are dynamic memory allocation functions. If any data has to be stored dynamically, then it will be stored in heap memory. Remember this. Normal local variables or static variables which are declared inside a function are stored in data, and dynamic variables are stored in the heap memory. Whatever dynamic data I wanted to store, that is stored in the heap memory. Then we have one more thing called as stack here. Stack is reserved for the local variables when we declare. Okay, so from the data which is going to come to this, it is going to store the information. The information has to be stored of this in stack space. So we have two kinds of different memory. One is stack memory, one is heap memory. Stack memory is used for normal variables. Heap memory is for dynamic variables. Remember this. That is why there is a differentiation of dynamic allocation and static allocation. Heap memory is used for dynamic memory allocation. Stack memory is used for static memory allocation. Okay. So here, if you observe, there is a space between the stack memory and heap memory. The space is nothing but, why the space is allocated is, if the more number of variables are stored in stack, stack can expand what? If more number of variables are stored in heap can expand. Okay, so it depends on the program. That is why stack and heap will be at both different corners. They will not be adjacent. They'll be at different corners, because if stack is having more number of variables, it can expand, so that it will not affect other memory. If heap is having more number of variables to be stored, it will expand. So that is how the information is going to be stored in stack and variable. So for every instruction which we are going to execute, this is a method which is going to be followed. So when the stack and heap both are at opposite side, what will happen is, it will allow the free flow of data to each other. The data will be flowing in a free way to each other, so that there will not be any errors occurring in both the things. Okay. And when the process is executed, and it has been out of the memory. It has to, once the program is executed, it has to release the memory, right? It has to release whatever memory is allocated. So that additional information, whatever the additional information it has to release, must also be stored and it must be restored. Okay, this data is what we call as program counters. Electronics people will be able to understand in a better way what is a program counter, because they'll be seeing in the electronics and program register. So whatever instruction I'm going to store, whatever things I'm going to store, it is going to store in a program counter and registry memory. That is how it is going to work on. I hope everybody is clear with these things, ma.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Next, what we have is something like whatever diagram we have seen in the previous class. Remember the diagram, which is what exact diagram which we have seen in the previous class. Whenever a new instruction comes, it will come to the ready state. From this ready state, it will go to the running state. If any interrupt has come, it will come back. If any input output request is, it will come to the wait state, or it will complete the things and it will terminate. So this is the life cycle of a process exactly. This is what we call as life cycle. I want everybody to make a note of this diagram first. Just I'll give you few minutes of time. Make a note of this because this is an important diagram. This is an important diagram which is called as life cycle of a process. Or take a screenshots. Once you have done, just inform me. Did you make a note of it, ma? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
All I made a note. Yeah, I told you to inform you once you have done it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So here, this is the life cycle of a process. So when we come to this life cycle exactly, what is happening? As you know, there are different levels. We have something like a new process, and we have ready, we have running, we have waiting, and we have terminated. These are the 5 different levels which are highlighted in the blue color. New, ready, running, waiting, and terminated. So these are 5 different states that a process will have. Okay, it can be a new, it can be ready state, it can be running state, it can be waiting state, or it can be terminated state. So what we have done, if you remember the diagram in the previous class, in the new state, what is happening? A new process is going to be created. So what is a new process? That is just I've explained you what are various things that we are going to have in a process. We are going to have text, we are going to have data, we are going to have if memory or stack memory. Okay, so that is a new instruction which is coming. A new instruction which is going to come is what we called as a thing that we are going to have. That is, the process is created over here. The instruction is ready to be executed. That is what is called a new. From new, once it is accepted, once it is admitted, it will come to the ready state. From new, it will come to the ready state. In ready state, what it will do is, it will check the things. It will check whether the resources are available or not. What are the things it requires? Is it available or not? If it is available, if the resources are available, then it will send it to the running state. It will send it to the running state. So first it has to check whether the running state is empty or not. That also it has to check. Along with it, the resources are available or not. All the things are going to be checked by in the ready state. Once everything is ready, then only it will send it to the running state. And in the running state, the process will start its execution. The process will start its execution. Suppose if there is any interruption, if a process has to be interrupted, then what it will do is it will interrupt the process and it will go back to the ready state once again. Okay, so it will go back to the ready state if it is interrupted only. Otherwise, what it will do, suppose if it requires any input output operations, it requires some input information from the keyboard, or it has to display something on the output, or it has to take a printout, then it will go to the input output operation. It will go to the input output operation. If it is empty, it will directly enter the things. Then it will start, it will do the input operation or output operation. Once it has completed, again it will go back to the ready state. Once input output operation is completed, it will go back to the ready state. Suppose if does not require any input output operation, then that means the task is completed. Then it can exit and go to the terminated web. Suppose if there are more than one task in the ready state, there are 2 or 3 tasks. The task which has come first on priority basis will be going to the ready state. Sorry, will be going to the running state. So according to the priorities, first come, first serve will be there. Otherwise, the last one is having higher priority, then it will move first. That is how the process is going to execute. Followed? All are able to follow this now?
Yes, sir.
Everybody is able to follow this diagram?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a yes. Any doubts now? Anybody is having any doubts in this? Fine. Okay. Yeah. Tell me. If anybody is having doubts, you can ask me. Somebody was asking something. Nobody is having any doubts. Okay, fine. So once these things are completed, once everything has been completed, that means once it is terminated, that means the process or the instruction that we have given is successfully executed. We can take it as successfully executed once all the instructions are completed only. Otherwise, we cannot say that it has been successfully executed. That is how, that is what is called as life cycle of process. This is what we call as life cycle of a process things. So in process life cycle, we are having total 5 states: new, ready, running, waiting, and terminated. Okay, so first it will come to the new state. From new state, it will go to the ready state. In ready state, it will check whether the process, whether the resources are available. If the resources are available, it will go to the running state. And in the running state, if it requires any input output operation, then it will go to the input output waiting loop. Then it will do the input output operation. From there again it will go back to the ready state. Then it will wait for its turn. It will wait in the sequence for its turn, and it will move to the running state. Once it has executed, it will get terminated. Suppose if there is any interruption while executing, then it will go back to the ready state once again. There is a complete life cycle of a process. How the process is going to execute, what are various things.